Hello, everyone. It's me, the Prez, Lawrence Prezman, co-founder of WagerTalk TV, and I have Rick Allec with us. He's only on a quarter of the screen. I got to fix it. My apologies, but hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. I got lots to talk about, and I'm excited to have Rick Allec joining us. Rick, while I fix your screen, because I'm a moron and forgot to ahead of time, how are you, my friend? And tell us about the 70,000 miles you rode this week while I make adjustments.
I appreciate it, Lawrence. And first of all, I've been waiting for the show all week long.
So what are you, Chris?
Last week I rode 520 miles on my bike, not all at one time, spread out over the week. We got a cycling team here in Vegas. We did a challenge to everybody to ride over 400 miles. And that turned into let's see who can ride the most miles.
Well, you didn't win, but you beat me and Johnny combined. So for that, congratulations.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rick Allec, CEO of WagerTalk Media. WagerTalk Media owns and runs WagerTalk.com, Sportsmemo.com, thegoldsheet.com, and soon to be some other .coms that Rick and I will talk about throughout the show. It's a privilege to do this show every single Monday. Rick, so much to talk about, and I have a lot of questions for you, but first I want to take care of some business, and then I want to talk about some of the shit that I want to talk about, and then I'm going to basically talk about how you start with me on a daily basis. So, to begin, next Monday, Rick, with no disrespect to you, is the show that everyone has been waiting for. Next Monday, Teddy Covers will be hosting Meet the Experts, and I will be the expert. There will be no more important, no better, no funner, not a word, no more entertaining, no more exciting, no more angry, miserable, any other words, than that show. So next Monday, Teddy Covers interviews me on Meet the Expert. Make sure to check that out. Rick, you check out all my shows, and you pretty much spend half the show texting me to stop saying this, stop doing that. What do I do wrong, Rick? Tell us.
Just a few minor things.
Minor.
Yeah, I don't want to overshadow everything you do right. You do a lot right.
Well, thank you, brother.
But it's just those little things that pop out just override everything that you've done right for the past hour.
Oh, so basically they are major because they literally, so ignore all, what a preface before that frickin' insult. Okay, so Rick, I talk about sex too much, so that's true, right?
Yep.
So it does lead to a question that a lot of our listeners definitely want to hear. When you ride 517 miles in a week, does it have any effect on your crotch?
It makes it fairly sore, but not inoperable.
Okay. It's just your age has made it inoperable.
Right. And by the way, since we are going to critique in real time, I've said don't talk about sex at all on the shows.
Yes.
And here we are right into it.
Absolutely. Like, Rick, you got to understand, I don't necessarily listen to you.
Right.
But I do have a lot of respect for your opinion, and so much so that Johnny, Marco, and the boys basically bought the Gold Sheet, not only for the Gold Sheet, but for you. I mean, me and you have known each other for over 20 years. We've been good friends, and we used to golf together when you golfed. We're never going to ride together, that I guarantee it. And now you are running the show, man. So let's start with that. Welcome, because it hasn't been a long time. And tell us, as the CEO of WagerTalk Media, what are your responsibilities?
As the CEO, I'm able to kind of watch that all the pieces are playing well together. Prior to me getting here, WagerTalk was just in full startup mode. And you had everybody running around doing everything, and it wasn't always well communicated together. And so the synergy wasn't there. And I think that one thing I've been able to do is come in and look at it from a higher level. I've been in companies from startup mode. I've been in companies in merger mode. I've been in companies in acquisition mode. And I think I was able to bring that expertise here and say to everybody, okay, let's sit down first of all and let's talk about what do we want out of WagerTalk Media? What's our in-game goal? What do we want to do day to day? What's important to us? And I think I was able to put a focus together for everybody that put everybody on the same page with the same plan and moving in the same direction. And it's been fun, it's been enjoyable, and everybody is motivated to do it. So it's been easy.
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, we're seeing such incredible growth. It's unbelievably motivating, and I mean, like, we literally were peaking right before COVID. And I was talking to Johnny about that today. Not the best timing, but let's hope it ends soon. Hey, Abel, welcome to the show. What's up, Carm? Feel free to ask Rick any questions. Yes, Carm, he is now the one that signs your paychecks. So, Rick, how often do you shave during COVID? Because I'm at once every 2 weeks, and it looks like you literally just shaved.
I shaved today for the first time in 5 days.
Oh.
Yeah, just for you.
Next time you go 5 days, I want to see a picture.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, is there actual scruff?
It's a little bit of scruff. I'm not a big facial hair guy.
Right.
I could not shave for quite a while, and it would just look like I missed a few days.
So nobody knows Rick's brother, RJ, but basically what Rick did was made a pact with RJ when he was like 8, saying, you can have all my facial hair.
Right.
That dude's got a full-on Greg the Anvil. Hey?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're starting to look a lot more like him as you age. You know that.
Yeah, I've seen that. I look at pictures of him and I next to each other right now, and we look a lot alike.
Yeah, it's amazing. And he's lost a ton of weight just like you. Hey, director, I love having you on. Greetings, Ollie says, curious if Rick was and is a sports bettor. So let's start right there, Rick. And then I want to talk to you about the Oculus VR headset that I have been completely addicted to for the last week. Were you, before you entered this industry, a sports bettor? And I know, and guys, Rick's family life is so colorful. His dad is absolutely iconic in this industry. So Rick, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your dad and what he did and how it was being brought up in that type of household, and then head into your experience in the betting industry.
Sure. Yeah, my dad's he's been a gambler ever since he could gamble. He was coming to Vegas. We grew up in Southern California. He was coming to Vegas as soon as he was 21. He has all kinds of stories about coming to Vegas with money in his pocket and having to hitchhike home. So he's been through it all. So over the years, even when he went into regular business, and he worked construction, he was a fireman, he was in real estate, he still gambled. He played poker. He would bet on sports. And after a while, he got really involved with betting on sports. And in fact, he would come up to Vegas and place wagers just because at that time, we're talking about in the late 70s, maybe right into the early 80s, you could run around and get a big variety of lines. And he had some guys that they were handicapping together. And my dad was actually in an article in Sports Illustrated. They wrote an article on Gary Austin, and this was pre-Gary Austin as a tout, when Gary Austin was just a sports bettor. He'd won the Castaways contest, and they were coming up here and they were betting every weekend, and Sports Illustrated contacted them and did an article about them. And my dad's in Sports Illustrated about that. As time went on, he got onto the other side of the counter, and he worked on that side of the counter for a real long time. And that's about when I got into the industry, was when he had left the sports betting side, was on the bookmaking side. And so within that part of it, I was never a sports bettor. People used to ask me all the time, are you going to bet sports? Do you bet sports? And my comment since I was 18 years old was, I know too many bookies that drive Mercedes. So I just wasn't that interested in betting sports at that time. And then I did start to dabble a little bit as time went on. I actually had a short stretch in between when offshore industry was starting, And before I'd gone to Don Best, I was trying to find a niche for myself. And I went and I worked for a large sports betting group out of Australia. And I did some programming for them. And I was their mover here in Vegas. And so I was at the Stardust every morning for the Stardust lottery, betting into the opening lines and whatnot. But I didn't really stay much into it. And really the reason that stopped me from getting more into it was once I left that part of it and then I ended up at Don Best, I was on the side of selling information and gamblers were buying that information from us. And I just didn't think it would be right. I didn't think it would look right if I was out there betting the games. It just left too much room for people to accuse me of getting the information and so forth. So the answer is, I feel like I could be a good sports bettor, but I've always stayed away from making too large of bets.
Rick Allec joining us, CEO of WagerTalk Media. Just a quick run through of Rick's life. One of three brothers, raised by a father who is an absolute iconic, and I mean at the pinnacle of this industry, has been involved in offshore sports betting his entire, pretty much close to Rick's entire life. Rick went to work for him. His brothers went to work for him. So Rick has done every single part of running a sports book. Then Rick went to Don Best, became the general manager of Don Best, built it into the iconic entity that it became. Then sold Don Best, joined up with the prescription, the RX.com or whatever it was called. Then he built Sports Options, sold Sports Options back to Don Best, rejoined Don Best, sold it again for the second time. Very rarely do you meet a guy who has sold the same company twice. Then he bought the Gold Sheet, which he owned for 5 minutes.
That sounds about right.
So tell us about that. Tell us about Don Best, because a lot of people, their premium service, and I mean, I haven't looked in a while, but I mean, it was a minimum of $500 a month. Why is anybody buying a line service for $500 a month?
Well, first, let me start with this with Don Best. If it wasn't for Don Best, you and I wouldn't be here today, because after I had started at Don Best, I had been working there for a period of time. One day someone came into my office, actually a guy named Shark who works for us at the Gold Sheet, and he had been working at Don Best for a while, and he said, "Rick, this dude Lawrence calls me every day. Please take this phone call for me. Get him off my back." So I started taking the daily phone calls from Lawrence, and we would talk and talk and talk.
Okay, but you got to explain why, dude. Let's back up here. I entered the industry. I started a company called whotobeton.com. I had no contacts. All I knew was that I was an aggressive Jew with a goal, and nothing was going to stop me. And I knew Don Best was the biggest website in the space, and it did not sell handicapping picks. So if I could talk Don Best into handing me their real estate so that I can sell picks, my business would blow up. And that meant calling every single day until you eventually said yes. Now continue.
And that's exactly what happened. So when I got to Don Best and I sat down with Dana, who was running Don Best at the time, and we talked about what we could do with the website, I said, "Hey, you can sell picks on the website." And he was adamantly opposed to selling picks on the website. He had positioned Don Best to be this for the professionals, and he looked at picks as something beneath all of that. And he also just didn't see the dollars in it. So Lawrence kept pitching and pitching and pitching.
Literally did not stop.
No, did not stop. And one day there was an idea that you pitched. I looked at that one. I said, that could possibly work.
Every day I had a different idea, though, Rick. For like 3 months. I had a different idea every single day. And thank
Absolutely.
God you kept answering the damn phone.
And so we pitched it to Dana, and he looked at that one and he said, "You know what? I can live with that one." Now, I don't know if that idea was that much better than the rest of the ideas, or if Dana had just been worn down of me going to him with every fifth idea that you had and saying, hey, how about this one? So we put the picks up, so we put who to bet on there, and that was kind of the key thing. And it's funny because Dana did it to protect Don Best, but in reality, it's really helped who to bet on. And so what we did was, instead of saying, here's Don Best picks, it was, here's a section called who to bet on the Don Best website. And yes, we sold the picks and we did everything there, but it was branded as you. So you were getting all the branding and getting all the money.
Yeah, 2 years later, you kicked me off of there and went and did it on your own.
2 years later, we sat down, and when I first got to Don Best, they didn't have a big tech team. They just had Sam, who is amazing, but he was doing everything, and so there wasn't a lot of projects that could be done. One of the things that I did when I got there is I built up a tech team, and we built up a team of programmers, and we got to a point where I saw what was going on in the picks industry. At this time, pay after you win was really the hot thing to do. And I sat down with the team.
Never did it.
And we did it. We built out our own, and we went to Lawrence and said, I'm sorry, you don't have the space anymore, but I think we let you still sell picks on the site.
Yeah, it was a non-issue, dude. I mean, we had a deal. The deal ended. Me and you kept on talking. We remained friends. I was very thankful to you, and I still am, Rick. I mean, in all seriousness, you literally gave me a way into this industry because, like I've mentioned in the past, I was not a sports bettor. I was just a businessman looking to find my way into an industry at, in my mid-20s. And yeah, so, without that, I don't think, yeah, you're right. I wouldn't be here today. But then the real question is, would I be better?
We'll leave that up for debate.
Yeah, I would have joined my brother's company. That's for sure.
About why someone would pay for a line service. Let's talk about that real quick. So yeah, at the time when I was at Don Best, all of the information we gathered was not readily available. So it's interesting that the prices basically stayed the same, even though the information industry has obviously evolved. With not starting off with the internet, then moving on to social media and so forth. And really, in a nutshell, why do you pay $500 for a service? Because all of the information that you get on that service in real time, today you could go out and you could get on your own. But think about the cost and the headache of trying to do that and manage that, either just yourself or hiring somebody else. So really what we got to at the end of Don Best and Sports Options is I was presenting it as we are data aggregators. Yes, there's a little bit of information that we put on there that came out of our own brains. We might have to decipher a tweet, decide if that's a legitimate account. Maybe a coach is being a little bit vague and so forth. So there's a little bit of that. But in general, everything people can get on their own.
Johnny points out that you've never changed. You treat people the same if you are no one or famous. I wonder how Johnny would know that.
Well, I've known Johnny for so long.
I know, but the joke of that question is Johnny can only be a no one or famous. So it's not like he's walking around seeing how you interact. Let's call Johnny a no one. So how would you interact with someone famous? But in all seriousness, Rick, Johnny is so right.
Are you the famous one in this analogy?
Me.
Okay.
Yeah. and I can vouch for the fact that you treat Johnny better. But in all seriousness, Rick, many years ago, I recommended two books to you, both about 18, 20 years ago. The first was Good to Great, Jim Rollins' book. It was an unbelievable book for anybody who is into management and bettering their lives. I mean, I actually think that's the best book I've ever read on that topic. And in that book, it talks about a level 5 leader. And a level 5 leader is the best leader, the best attributes a leader could have. And what is that? That is a balance between humility and ambition. I am the perfect example of ambition. You actually do, as Johnny mentioned, you really do find that balance between humility and ambition, and it's an incredibly hard thing to find. I mean, you look at guys like Jeff Bezos. I mean, I'm guessing he's more ambition than humility. You look at Bill Gates. He looks like a perfect balance between the two. There's very few leaders at the top of their game because being a leader really requires ambition, and to a degree, arrogance. You have zero arrogance, yet an amazing leader. So I just wanted to point that out because, firstly, everyone should read that book. And secondly, that's one of the real reasons that we chased you to be the CEO of WagerTalk, because a person with that balance between humility and ambition is a person that can manage the personalities that I and Johnny and Marco and the rest of the guys have. Remember the second book I told you about?
I don't.
The Outsiders. Did I not tell you to read that?
No.
Well, then,
I think it was just, I mean, good to great, obviously. I
no,
remember that one.
for sure told you to read The Outsiders. The Outsiders, an incredible book. It studies the 10 most successful CEOs in history of America based on their increase in stock for public companies, and it explains why. And it's 10 CEOs that you've never heard of, basically shits all over people like Lee Iacocca and all these guys that are quote unquote known as the greatest CEOs of all time. An absolute must read. So Rick, if I did not recommend that book to you, that needs to be an absolute priority read for you as a guy who's going to move our company forward. So you're at Don Best. You're selling line services for about $500 a month. It's pure margin. What a business. Outstanding stuff. Then you added Who to Bet on a pick service to it. And then ultimately you sold Don Best and went to the prescription and sports options. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, when Don Best was sold, I had an option to stay on and work with them, but it just wasn't the environment that I wanted to stay with. And at the time, the industry was booming, and the prescription was another site that I looked at and I said, okay, they've got good traffic, they've got a good name, people know who they are, but man, it is underutilized. It has not been built properly. They are not monetizing that traffic properly. I just looked at that as a real opportunity, and I knew the owners of it. It had been sold from the original owner and the two guys that were running it, and they had other businesses, and they really needed someone to help run their business. So I partnered with them, and we took off, and we laid out a business plan. We were going after a covers.com type of site. We weren't interested in a paid line service. We were going to have a great free line service, but we didn't want that headache. And shortly after I come on board, shit just hit the fan in the industry. Bet on Sports, which was a major advertiser, they held the 4 top spots for advertising. They were gone, and then the gaming bills passed, and then Pinnacle's out of the market, and all of a sudden we're sitting around saying, crap, how do we monetize this traffic? And we came up with a couple ideas, and we launched a few things, and they did okay. And then we just said, you know what? We got the expertise. Sam, the programmer from Don Best, had made the leap with me, and we sat down and we laid out a business plan for a paid line service. And our original plan was just to have a lower end line service. In fact, the first one was called the RX Odds. It was just going to be part of the site, and we were just looking to help monetize that traffic. But as we started to build it, I looked at it and I said, man, we've done some great things here. We were out of the shackles of having to do things in the legacy way that Don Best had to do things, because the Don Best program was originally written in the 90s, and it still maintained some of that legacy headaches. And so we started writing the program. It looked great, and we decided to jump off. And we started announcing that we were going to have a paid line service. We were going to be cheaper than Don Best. That was going to be kind of our pitch. We were going to have all of the sports books. It seemed like a pretty easy path to get into. And then what ends up happening is that some of the sports books partnered up and purchased Don Best. And so we went from having an easy path to now competing with the companies that we wanted to get their lines. But, we had good relationships. We battled through it. One thing I will say that was really interesting about my time at Sports Options, or getting started at Sports Options, was here I had a great reputation in the industry. Sam had a great reputation in the industry. The people that we had brought over had a great reputation in the industry. But people still didn't jump on board as fast as I thought they would, because they were still saying, hey, We know what your reputation is. But until you can prove to us that you can do what you did at Don Best and that your information is going to be as good as it was, we're not coming on board. So it was a real eye-opener being in that full startup mode and having to earn the respect of all the customers in the industry and earn that business.
Rick, you then sold Sports Options back to Don Best. You then sold Don Best, and then you decided to purchase the Gold Sheet. So let's jump forward to that before we get your answer. Hey, David from Israel, Manishma. Rick, so you bought the Gold Sheet, and you sold it to us before your deal even closed. So tell us why you bought the Gold Sheet, what your thinking was, and then why you decided to sell to WagerTalk. And then, guys, so stay tuned. We're going to get into what is coming from WagerTalk in the next few months. Rick?
So when Don Best was acquired by Scientific Games, again, it wasn't the environment that I would want to stay in, so I left. And I really wasn't even looking around at my next opportunity. But Bruce Marshall from the Gold Sheet had contacted me a few months earlier and said that they were interested in selling. They were what he called an aging ownership group, and they thought it was time. And so I had, just by chance, looked at their books not too long ago. And even though I wasn't thinking about buying them at that time, I thought about it after I realized I wasn't going to be at Don Best any longer. And why did I want to buy them? Well, first of all, it's the Gold Sheet. I mean, when I got into the industry, I would buy the Gold Sheet. I was at the newsstands buying the Gold Sheet, just like everybody else. It's what I used. It was, all the information was there. And so it had this iconic feel about it. Mm-hmm. And then when I looked at their books, even though they were this site that when you look at their site, everybody can agree that that looks like a very outdated site, even though it was never
It was outdated in 1983.
That's exactly right. You know, so even though they still produce a PDF every week as opposed to doing it the right way, all of these things, the revenue was decent. I was in a spot where Bruce and some of the other writers wanted to stay on board even after they sold it to help make sure the content stayed to the level that people wanted. And I, again, looked at it as a very underutilized site. I thought that we had a chance to really bring it into today's market, and really then we could take advantage of the changes in the market and with all the states opening up and so forth. So I just saw it as a great opportunity, and I thought it was something that would be a fun project for me and some of the guys that had left Don Best with me as well to work on.
So you never really got to see it through, dude. I mean, you are going to oversee the change that will be happening with the Gold Sheet, but ultimately now you've got a much bigger responsibility. So Johnny Detroit speaks to you on the phone. You tell him that you just bought the Gold Sheet. Johnny says, well, why don't we merge? You say, nah, I think I'm going to do the Gold Sheet by myself. And then we rewind 20 years ago to an incessant cheeseball who won't stop bothering you until he gets what he wants. So Johnny calls me up and says, Rick just bought the Gold Sheet, but he doesn't want to merge with us. And I said, oh, I know how to handle Rick. This ain't my first rodeo. And then what happened?
So it is true. I had lunch with Johnny, and it was a really nice lunch with Johnny and Marco. Johnny said, hey, we should do some stuff together. And even though earlier you said I'm not arrogant, I'm very confident. And so I thought to myself, you know what? I can do this on my own. I'm good. But thanks. I appreciate it. And that was my thought process. Then you call me up. And I want to say that we were on the phone for
I wouldn't let you off the phone.
No. It went, and it was a late
dude, I
call.
texted you. I'm like, I just need you for 5 minutes. You remember?
Yes.
5 minutes.
Yes. And I went into that call saying to myself and my wife, who was sitting next to me, this guy's going to call me. I'm going to have to turn him down. I feel kind of bad about it, but I'm just not that interested. And then you started pitching it. And yeah, I admit you're a good salesman, but as the information came out, and it was really eye-opening with everything that everybody was doing at WagerTalk. So I don't want to take away from what you accomplished on that call, but I think the biggest thing that you were able to do was really, really hype up everything that was going on at WagerTalk. And it made me start thinking, that's all the stuff that I'm going to do or want to do on my own. They are already shoulder deep into it. They have gone through all the growing pains. They know all about it. And I started looking at it and I could see the trajectory, and it just started to make sense. Now, I will say this. There's been a day or so every week that I've had a call with Lawrence where I've thought to myself, 6 months ago, I said I wanted to do this by myself. Was that a mistake? But all the other 6 days of the week, I know.
Right. That's what I was just going to say. Rick, we're going to get into what's coming with WagerTalk Media. But before we get into that, I just want to point out that Carmine Bianco did log on to the show to listen. And the reason I want to point that out is, as the CEO of the company, if you were my CEO, which technically you are, but you're not really my boss, so to speak. We're partners, but you are the boss of the business. I would log on and want to listen to what you have to say. So I would just like you to take your pen in your head and mark down a check mark for Carmine Bianco. Good staff member, smart guy, ambitious, and smart enough to log on and listen to the CEO get interviewed about the future of WagerTalk for the first time ever. So just, do you want a list of the people who didn't log on?
No, I can figure that one out.
Carmine did. Rick, so what's coming with WagerTalk Media? I mean, I know obviously, and I'll talk to it too as you go through, but let's go through. We've got, let's talk about Sportsmemo, the Gold Sheet, and WagerTalk as separate entities, and also the stuff that's coming that is, to the side of that, if you will.
Okay. So for WagerTalk, let's start with WagerTalk because it really is the easiest one because WagerTalk is leading the pack. And what's coming for WagerTalk? Well, a new website that should be launched in the next few weeks. So it's just a new look, but we're happy with everything that's going on WagerTalk. We are happy with the cappers that we have at WagerTalk. We are thrilled to death with the sales. We're thrilled to death with the marketing efforts, with the pricing, everything about it. And it's easy to be thrilled to death because it's working. I mean, we saw the trajectory before I came on board. We looked at charts and could see the trajectory. We had no idea where it was going to go beyond that. It didn't stay on the same path. It skyrocketed up. So we know that what we're doing at WagerTalk and what has been done in the past is working. What are we going to add to WagerTalk? This is going to be a bit across all the brands, but we're going to be launching first a new free odds page. We have this current free odds page. It's a very popular page. It's been the same page that WagerTalk and other sites have been using for years. In fact, we developed that page at Sports Options so that we could give it to handicapping sites so they would have an odds page and wouldn't have to go out and do their own. But we have a new one that's coming out that's going to just add in some features that we're not able to do on the current odds page. And these are going to be features, the most requested features from the general public. And this is still going to be a free odds page, and it is going to be the best free odds page that's going to be out there.
So we're going to have a world-class odds page.
Absolutely. We first of all, Sam, the guy who wrote the original Don Best, that wrote the next Don Best, that wrote Sports Options, that has spent his life writing odds products, is the guy that wrote this. So we know it's going to be technically the best.
When do we expect this to happen?
We'll be launching the first version with the new website.
So never.
So we'll see the new.
That's an inside joke. We've been working on these damn websites for 2 freaking years.
It's true. So we'll see it launched with that, and the first wave is just going to be similar to what we currently have, which a few added features. Then we're going to come out with the next version that's going to have a few additional features for our free visitors. Then that site is going to eventually, or that page is going to eventually merge into a paid odds product. And we're not talking about a Don Best level product. We're talking about something that is a much lower price point, but has a lot of the same features that you could get on a Don Best. And this is going to be the perfect companion for your casual sports bettor. It's going to be something that they haven't been able to get before. and it's going to have features that they haven't seen on other odds pages and so forth.
Yeah, and look, this is your third go round building an odds product. So, I mean, I can only assume it's going to be each one is just going to be better than the next. So, Rick, Carmine Bianco logged on today to listen to you talk, and he has a question for you, which is, really great. If any of the staff of WagerTalk or any of the consultants at WagerTalk have questions for their head guy, please feel free to ask. And Teddy Savransky, I want you to tick. Teddy just decided to come listen. So welcome, Teddy. So Carmine wants to know, are there going to be any soccer live odds coming from some of the major leagues, the Bundesliga, EPL, etc.?
Absolutely. We've already, in the first phase of this product, it will have all the same soccer lines that you would see on a Don Best service.
Teddy,
so it's extensive.
Teddy Covers wants to know the ETA on the new website launch.
Teddy clearly just started listening just this minute, because we just said a few minutes ago that it's about 2 weeks away.
So Teddy, it's 2 weeks away. Is that in tech speak or is that in reality?
I feel confident in saying a couple of weeks, and I'll tell you why. Because I am currently testing it, and everything is there. It is actually working. I could technically launch it today.
And I just want everybody to know, if you really like the new website, I was instrumental in the design of it. If you don't like it, after I did all my instrumental design work and handed it over to Rick's team, they screwed it up. Accurate? Fair? See, and that's what makes a bad leader, Rick. A guy that blames everyone when things go wrong and congratulates himself when things go right. I won't want to talk about if we know any leaders like that, but clearly that's the opposite of your technique. I think in the book, Good to Great, there's a quote in there that says, a great leader looks in the mirror when things go wrong and looks out the window when things go right. That is a phenomenal statement.
Yeah, it is. I agree.
And guys, make sure to check that book out, Jim Rowland's Good to Great, and also The Outsiders as well. So, Rick, we have WagerTalk, Sportsmemo, and the Gold Sheet, all of new websites being launched. We're going to be launching the WagerTalk one first, but all of them should be ready to go by football season, is our hope. We are going to make a few changes to WagerTalk, and we're going to be making a lot of changes to Sportsmemo. We can't really get into that a lot now. But they're coming as well, so stay tuned for that. Not that any one of the Sportsmemo staff are listening, mind you. Rick, let's talk about WagerBucks. WagerBucks is something for all of you guys out there. It is a currency that we have at WagerTalk and Sportsmemo, where, if you buy a $20 pick from us, and it has a 150% guarantee and it loses, you get $30 back in WagerBucks, in which you can spend the WagerBucks on that handicapper. So, Rick, we've got some plans with that coming along as well. We're really hoping to use WagerBucks as a real big thing that can be used across our network. Do you want to talk at all about that, or should we move on to some other topics?
Well, I'll just say real quick on WagerBucks. Yeah, interesting thing about that is that when I first came on board, that WagerBucks product wasn't high on my radar of things that you guys had done at the site. I thought it was nice, but as the months went on and I saw how flexible it is and how we can utilize it and the plans that we have for it, it's a fantastic addition to the site. And now having the 3 different sites and more sites coming up, and with the odds product, and being able to have one central currency that we can let people buy products across all of our sites, give people a discount for buying them in bulk, etc. It's great for us. It's great for the consumer. It's just a fantastic product.
Rick, my Israeli friend David puts up that the soccer odds should be shown. They should show the Asian handicap and totals as it is at Pinnacle. Do you want to speak to that?
I think that we're going to launch with just your standard three-way odds. And I would say that in the paid version of the odds product, you'll see a lot more options on odds displays, etc.
And how long till the paid version comes out?
Yeah, that one's hard. That one's hard to say because we have to see what feedback we get on the initial product. But I'd say we're about 3 months away from that one.
Excellent. Phenomenal. Guys, thanks so much for joining us, Rick Allec, CEO of WagerTalk Media, and myself. I got more stuff to talk to you about, but I just want everybody to know, on behalf of, Marco, myself, and really the entire WagerTalk family, without Johnny Detroit, you wouldn't be here. Without Johnny Detroit, I wouldn't be here. And I think that's going to really be the way it is moving forward. I mean, very rarely is the CEO not the MVP, but I don't think you will ever enter the MVP talk while Johnny Detroit is still with us. Do you want to talk about that?
Listen, when you called me that night and you started pitching why I should join and why we should merge, it really was all about Johnny. It was all about what Johnny had done. It was about all that he had accomplished. It was about how he takes a YouTube channel and just blows it up just by learning all that he can learn.
Yeah.
And I looked at that, and what I realized is what we have in him is not just a guy that comes up with a bunch of ideas and then calls his partners and say, hey, here's a good idea, and then hangs up the phone. We got a guy that when we have an idea, we can say to him, hey, here's an idea, and he says, I'll be an expert next week, let's launch it. And that's literally what happens. But even better, what he does is he also understands his limits. And he knows that he gets to a certain spot, and that's when it's time to say, I've learned all I can learn. I've got too much other stuff to do. It's time to call on an expert, a consultant, or whatever it may be. But as much as everybody has pitched in at WagerTalk and has done their part, it's nowhere without Johnny.
Yeah, no. It's actually unbelievable. And I mean, look, we really benefit from that. But, going back to that other book I was speaking about called The Outsiders, which again, I insist you read. It's actually become a cult classic, that book. What they do in that book is, as I said, they look at the top 10 CEOs of all time based on ROI on their stock, right? So, when you look at Amazon stock, where it came out to where it is now is not necessarily as big as a penny stock at $300. One of the things that they talk about in that book over and over and over again is the relationship between the CEO and the COO. And the CEO with the ability to sort of put all the chess pieces into place and really have this grandiose vision and really, talk to people about mergers and acquisitions, understand finance, understand accounting, understand, legal documents. There has never been a successful CEO without an even more talented COO. And that's what the book talks about, that sort of symbiotic relationship between the two. I sit here from my perch and it's like, Jesus Christ, man, I got the greatest COO on the planet. And I got a CEO with almost the same amount of greatness. No disrespect, I don't necessarily think you're the greatest CEO on the planet. But I'll give you top 100. Man, like I am a lucky guy, bro.
Oh, it's just absolutely true. And and one thing I left out as I was praising Johnny was what really kept this door open was our relationship over all the years.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like you had to tell me, hey, this guy's done all these great things. That's nice to hear. But I'd been dealing with Johnny for 10, 15 years, and we just had a great relationship. I helped him whenever I could help him. He helped me whenever he could help me. It was just always a very nice two-way street.
Hey, Elliot, welcome to the show, brother. I hope you're doing okay since your Loved one passed from cancer last week. I obviously thought about you a lot throughout the week. So I hope you're doing okay. Best wishes, my friend. Guys, we are going to have Johnny Detroit come on, and I will be interviewing him. It will happen in the next 3 weeks. Next Monday, Teddy Covers is going to be interviewing me. And then the following Monday will be Drew Martin. And then the Monday after that will literally be Johnny Detroit. Rick, let's get a little bit into your personal life. But first, I got to tell everybody, a friend of mine bought me an Oculus. An Oculus is a VR headset, comes with these handheld things. There's a game called Dead Drop. It's where you shoot zombies. I have been playing that game nonstop. I cannot stop. I've never been a gamer. I never owned a PlayStation. I never owned a Nintendo. You know, not to talk about my age, but I didn't play pinball. I didn't play Pac-Man. I didn't play Space Invaders. I hated it all. I am so gripped by this Oculus. I cannot believe, and I know you don't like talking about sex, but the porn on it is a game changer, according to my friends. Rick, this Oculus thing, Jesus, man, like 3:30 a.m., I'm in my bed shooting zombies. I can't freaking stop.
Give it another week.
Yeah, okay. I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted.
You know, this just falls into one of those technologies. There's technology that comes along that's fantastic technology. It's amazing, but there's some sort of barrier that's stopping it from everybody
price.
wanting to do it. It's sometimes it is price. Sometimes it's the fact that you have to have this headset on, and it's cumbersome.
You know what? They've gotten it really comfortable. I really am not having much issues with it.
It reminds me of when TVs 5-6 years ago were all selling 3D TVs, and everybody said, "Yeah, you got to buy a 3D TV." You'd go down to Best Buy, you got to buy a 3D TV, and they didn't go anywhere. And the reason they didn't go anywhere was because no one wants to sit around with glasses on. And if they weren't going to be able to come up with technology to where you could just look at your TV and get somewhat of that effect, it wasn't going to go anywhere. And so while I'm sure Oculus is going to do fantastic within its niche market, I'm not buying that we are going to all be sitting around in our living room watching movies and anything else with our loved ones, all with headsets on.
I'm not buying that either, dude, but I do believe the gaming community are going to switch from PlayStation and Nintendo and that 2D flat environment into this environment, and I do see that happening. And especially, and I don't know if you realize this, but you can actually Chromecast what you're seeing in Oculus onto your television, so we can watch each other play. It's really quite something special. Rick, let's talk about your personal life. You were a golfer.
Yep.
Now you're a biker. You have a YouTube video up, over 1 million hits. Tell us about your cycling, and tell us about that video, and tell us where they could find it, because it's really worth watching.
So I was a golfer, and I was a every weekend golfer.
You were not that great. I mean, you weren't. You know, Nick Borman's a 0.
Wow.
Scratch golfer.
Wow, that's impressive.
Rick, I got to stop you. Do you remember, me and you golfed at Bears Best 12, 15 years ago. We show up and they give us a third, like some random guy. Yep. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
He shot a 59.
Yes, I remember that.
A 59.
Yes.
And that's a PGA regulation course.
And that was with you,
yapping
non-stop, talking about how great he was playing.
Dude, me and you literally watched Michael Jordan in his prime take on like an army.
Yeah, like, it was fantastic.
Oh, I mean, we literally, dude, there are PGA players that have never shot 59s. This guy shot a legit 59. And do you remember, I'll never forget this day. I mean, neither you or I have moments where we're with such greatness around us. I don't know if you remember, but he had a shot where I think it might have been a par 3, where he hit it into the bunker. This was in the back 9, and it was buried under a lip. He holed it. Do you remember that shot?
Yep, I do.
I mean, me and you were like, what?
Yep.
How? And the crazy thing was, his 59, he only had like one birdie on the back 9. Like his first 9 was like world class. Anyway, you're a cyclist now. Talk to us about that.
Well, I got into cycling really just to get fit. I was fairly overweight. And
that is true, everybody. About 80 pounds heavier than he is now.
I was about 80 pounds heavier. I had a group of friends that we started riding together. And I'm fairly competitive with my friends, not in a nasty way. It's just if they're going to go fast, I want to go a little bit faster. And we started riding more and more. That led me to joining a local team here in Las Vegas. We go around and we do some events across the Western United States. We do some bike racing. And that's where my YouTube video came from. I was at a bike race in Santa Barbara. It was at the end of the race. And at the end of a bike race, anyone that's done any of this amateur bike racing, that's the sketchiest part of the race. Everybody's sprinting. Everybody thinks they're going to win. Everybody thinks, they're a pro at that point. And we were coming across to a finish line. I had done this race before, but they had changed the finish line. And as we were coming towards the finish line, I didn't realize it, but we were coming across a bridge. The reason I didn't realize is there was just some cement barriers on each side of the road. So I hadn't looked over, so I didn't know what was over there. But we're coming in, and it's 50 guys, and I hear a crash happening in front of me.
Wait, just to let everybody know, there's a guy behind Rick with a GoPro filming. So
yes.
Continue.
Yeah, so a lot of times in these cycling events, people put their GoPros on. What was great about this guy is he had a GoPro in front and in back, so he had 2 GoPros running. And so I heard the crash. I started to move a little bit to the right side, and the crash just funneled in front of me. And I grabbed my brakes. I knew what was coming because I'd crashed like this before. There was a guy laying in the ground in front of me. I was going to hit him, flip over, and land on the pavement, and it was going to hurt. But what ended up happening as I was flipping over, I got bumped a little bit and got pushed onto the cement barrier. And as I hit this barrier, I thought to myself, shit, I don't know what's on the other side of this barrier. And I just grabbed the barrier. And I was left holding a barrier like this. And I looked back down behind me, and it was 60 feet down to a riverbed where my bike was laying. And I was lucky enough, there was a spot to stick my foot, so I wasn't hanging by a thread. I was positioned well. Somebody came running across the road, and they pulled me off. And so I got over. Everyone's finished the race. I went over to the medical tent. I got a little bit cleaned up. My friends that were around, some of them saw that it was a crash. No one really saw what had happened. They came over and they talked to me. And I said to them, I feel like I just almost died. I don't know what just happened. It's very hard to explain because I knew what had happened, but did it really happen that way? So we get cleaned up. We head to the hotel that night. We got drunk as hell, celebrating the fact that I was still alive. And we woke up the next morning and we drove back to Vegas. This was in Santa Barbara. And we started driving back to Vegas. And we're about halfway, and one of my friends in the car says, holy shit, someone has this whole thing on video. And they have it from the front and the rear, and you can see full on where I get pushed over, where I grab onto this thing, and so forth. And I looked at that, and like I said before, I was a bit freaked out about it before. That really freaked me out to see it at that point. So we started telling some friends, and we saw some other people liking it. We saw all of a sudden this video just started blowing up. And I get back down, I'm back in Vegas, and I'm back at the office, and I start getting calls from just random media places saying they want to do interviews. So I do a few little interviews here and there, and that's where it goes. I mean, this is just your typical viral video, and next thing you know, it has 1 million views. By the way, to find it, go search for Cyclist Crash Santa Barbara.
There you go, Carmine, because he just asked everybody listening to the show, search up Cyclist Crash Santa Barbara.
And by the way, the fame continues on because my brother just sent me a random TikTok video, and the title of the TikTok video was people that almost died or people that barely made it or whatever it was, and it's people that are almost getting hit by cars and so forth, and there's a shot of me in the video.
Well, this cannot be RJ who sent that to you.
No,
No chance. Like, RJ thinks TikTok is tic-tac.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Rick, the funniest part of the video story for me is, so back to merging with Rick. So Johnny and myself fly down to Las Vegas. Him, me, and Johnny, myself, and Marco meet with Rick. Derek Stevens at Circa was kind enough to lend us a conference room. We sat and we ironed out our deal. And Johnny is talking about, how savvy he is on YouTube and all the things he knows on YouTube. And Rick just wants to seal the deal. He's like, dude, I have a video with over 1 million hits. Please.
Yes. All you got to do is almost die. I do remember that.
Carm found the video. And Carm, you're not going to see a lot until towards the end of the video, but check it out. It's worth watching. And it does. I think there is a slow-mo section to it, right?
Yeah. The funny thing about the video is that it wasn't, since it wasn't my video, I made none of the few dollars on YouTube that the guy who put it on there. So I had messaged him afterwards, and I didn't know him before this. I messaged him after, became friends on Facebook, and said, I hope you bought something nice with the dollars.
Well, hey, listen, dude, he's entitled to it.
Yep.
Right? I mean, it really is his video. It's not yours.
I was fine with it. Yep.
Yeah, so there you go, Carm. The video was monetized, just not by Rick Allec. Rick, pink and purple blinds?
Those are actually brown.
Oh, well, it looks pink and purple. I've been
They're brown.
Staring at them the whole show going, who chose those? They're brown? Okay, that's fair enough.
Well, it's very sunny on the other side. So,
well, yeah, you're in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And now you have a house in Colorado that you're building from scratch. It's almost finished. So you're jumping. Jumping back and forth between the.
It's kind of a nice story. Yep, my wife and I met in high school in Colorado. I was born and raised in Southern California. My mom moved to Colorado. High school, met my wife. We got married. And we'd go back there and visit her family. We decided to build a vacation.
Do you have any idea how many sexual questions a man like me would have when talking to a guy who's been with one woman? I just can't ask them because you're going to literally text me during this show.
Yes.
So I got to go shopping, dude. I got the kids this week. I got to go to the grocery store, so wish me luck. It's like a half-hour line, and then they spray you. There's like people with spray, and you have to be sprayed down. And
we haven't got the spray yet down here.
Well, they don't spray. They spray my hands. They spray like my arms, like if skin's showing. They spray the cart. So that's my plan for the rest of the day. Rick, thanks so much for joining me, man. And it was a fun hour. I didn't think we would go a whole hour, but it was really awesome. Everyone, remember, we're going to have me on as the expert next week. Teddy will interview me. I should get Teddy and Carm to interview me, like both of them. And then we got Drew Martin and then Johnny Detroit. And for the rest of the week, guys, lots coming up. We have a UFC event coming up, 249. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. Tomorrow, we have a show with Missy and Tony and Ski, and then we have Straight from the Strip and Betting 101, which has been extremely well received, and of course the soccer show Wednesday and Friday. And Carmine Bianco will be taking over the hosting duties for the soccer show on Friday, which I'm excited about. Yeah, I know you're more than excited about it. You're like, oh, thank God, man. Like, I'm so sick of texting that guy during these shows. Doesn't he ever shut up? Hey, thanks, director. He writes, great show. You have all done a great job with these shows during the downtime. Much appreciated. Rick Dave asks, is there any sports books or casinos open for betting in Las Vegas? I just saw a video on YouTube. Streets are really empty there. There's none now, but it is starting to happen, right?
No, it's not starting to happen yet. So, one of the first things that the governor did is he banned all gaming. He just didn't want to leave it where some could open and some couldn't. So there was no gaming, in-person gaming at all. The sportsbook apps are still working, but even some of the sports books have turned those off. They just didn't want to staff them and so forth. But Vegas Strip right now is eerie. I actually rode my bike down the Strip yesterday, and it's just an odd situation. They're going to be opening back up. They've started to lay out the regulations that they're going to have. But the biggest one is casinos have to operate at 50% occupancy.
Did you see Kelly's? Sorry. Did you see Kelly's video? She rode through the Strip like a week ago, posted it on Instagram. It's incredible picture.
Yeah, it's very weird. Very weird.
Yeah. Okay, brother. Well, that's the show. So thank you so much, guys. Thanks so much for logging on, especially all the regulars, David, director, Elliot, Kane, Superman. We can always count on you. Carmine Bianco, who seems to have nothing else to do. Chris at WagerTalk, who actually gets paid to log on, but we still thank you regardless. And Johnny D.
Don't forget Teddy.
What?
Don't forget Teddy.
And Teddy. But I think Teddy might have just logged on for 1 second. Asked his question and disappeared. But mostly, thank you, Rick. It was a wonderful show. And, I love you an insane amount. I'm really happy to have partners that I enjoy working with. John Lennon couldn't say that, nor could Glenn Fry and many other famous groups. But you, me, and Johnny, Marco, we're going to the end. Be well, everybody. We'll see you all tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks so much for watching Meet the Experts. Show sponsored by WagerTalk, Sportsmemo, and The Goal. Hey, Teddy's still on. Teddy's still on, Rick. There he is. He says, thanks, Rick. Teddy, any questions? We can keep this going. I got nothing to do. Please ask some questions, damn it, please. I don't want to end. Don't forget Abel. I said Abel. Wait, what is Abel saying? Don't forget, who did I not thank? Yeah, Abel, I always thank you. Rick, we got a guy named Abel who logs on every day and a guy named Kane who logs on every day. That I think is pretty cool. Later, guys. See you all tomorrow.